So say if I had a client who was a choreographer and I'm also a choreographer myself, like, or whatever, I have an interest in dance, then it would make sense for me to pursue that as an avenue. So I think it's something to think about, which may sound really obvious, but am I going to be passionate about working with this one sole client? Do I like that space enough? Because we'll have some roles that are maybe in the tobacco sector or gambling or Shell or whatever, that some candidates think on paper, oh great, yes, in-house, I want to go for it. But then actually when they then go to the interview, they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm passionate about this, what the brand is. So that's something that I think is quite important to think about as well. And like, you know, does it fit with your, as well as your education and your training, does it also fit with like morally or whatever, ethically, where you see yourself working to? Sorry, go on, were you going to say something?
Oh no, I was going to say, I tend myself to be a little bit more commercial and be more role focused. So it's not so much about the company, although I've actually never worked for a gambling company or a tobacco company. I haven't had that same challenge that some people might actually have had. But no, I tend to be more focused on the role and the people. I mean, no matter which company you're working for, if your boss is, you know, not fun to work with, or you know, actively bad to work with, then you're not going to enjoy it, I don't think, no matter what industry it's in. Equally, if the role that you're doing is just, you know, boring, or you're not finding any passion in the role, then again, I don't know that I personally would find it interesting. Just being involved in a client that was in dance and choreography would be enough for me. Yes, it's going to be role and people focused. So yeah, that's probably been my approach.
Okay, and
I think the thing is with the great thing about being an accountant is you can work in any field, and you can grow. Once you're in that industry, you can then also go into other roles within that industry. So I know, you know, some peers of mine that have started in, you know, pure finance roles and then moved into operations. Similarly, I know some that have moved into strategy. And obviously, we all know there are some CEOs out there that used to be CFOs. And, you know, chief transformation officers that are accountant, originally started out as accountants. So you can go into any industry you want as an accountant. You can work anywhere in the world as an accountant. The qualification is generally recognised reciprocally in most countries, you can do a lot of different roles. So that's a great thing about being an accountant.
Yeah, and another thing that I just like to touch on is a different issue to what we kind of discussed, a different line. Obviously, again, this might seem kind of base level. When a lot of people who are qualified, they haven't interviewed actively for like 3 years, because obviously they've done their training for 3 years and they've been happy where they are, getting on with their exams, first time passes, hopefully, everything going well. What kind of advice would you give someone at interview stage? What, like, general advice for someone who's about to start interviewing? What kind of tips would you give someone?
Sure. I think there's, you know, you just have to get the basics right to start off with. So you want to make sure that you're well presented, and you know, turn up on time, or, you know, early, or get the basics right. Because I think if you get the basics wrong, it's going to, you know, obviously set you back quite badly. And then I just think it's about practice. So there are obviously websites you can Google or ask people like, you know, Michael Page. Do you have a list of questions that are typically asked in interviews? Think about your answers. Think about the best way to sell yourself, because in many respects, an interview is a sales pitch. And then just don't be afraid to try, because ultimately, as long as you're turning up and you know, trying, most recruiters won't mind if it goes badly. They'll happily send you along to another client. It's when you get it wrong that you might get some negative feedback from recruiters, because you're damaging their reputation if you turn up. You know, not personally, I haven't had that feedback, but I've heard other people who have sort of damaged a recruiter's reputation then struggle to get new roles because no recruiter wants to work with them. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that can happen for sure. I think as well, if you're working with a good recruiter, they'll hopefully give you insight into who you're going to be meeting as well. So you can do a background check on who they are and just kind of at least put a face to a name before the actual meet. Something I would always advise people to do as well is something so basic. If it's face to face, plan the journey in advance. Like, are there tube strikes that day? Or, you know, how long is it going to take me? Is there a coffee shop around the corner I can go to before, just to I don't know, whatever it is, like it's just yeah, working out what's best for you. Okay, and with regards to with your career, like from beginning to end, well, not end to current, sorry, it's not over, so current, what would you say is one of the highlights that you've had that you've just thought, wow, like this is great? One thing that's happened that you've just been like, this is the bee's knees.
Yeah. Oh, it's yeah, I think, I mean, in terms of my career, working on this merger has really been, you know, an exciting journey. It happened out of the blue, as I sort of indicated. I was more in a pure finance role or pure head of reporting role, and then getting the opportunity to work with, you know, 2 CFOs, in fact, 2 boards of directors, directly on a pretty large merger. You know, ultimately, the business has £800 million turnover. You know, it's Cambridge University, so it's you know, got reporting into other stakeholders that are very, you know, high profile and interesting. And yeah, working on that merger has really been an experience, and it's really been a growth journey for me to get outside of just the head of reporting and into more finance transformation. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. And what as like a departing kind of thought, what's the one bit of advice you would give someone who's either studying or about to qualify, or maybe 1 year post-qualified, just in general, like with advice for what to do next if they're starting to think about what's next?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say to have a growth mindset. So, you know, make sure you go into a role that allows you to grow, and then make sure you take the opportunities to grow. So if there are extra responsibilities that they're looking for someone to take on, definitely consider them. If there's extra hours that need to be done in order to get, you know, maybe some more exposure to senior people so they can see the work that you're doing, etc., then you know, take that opportunity. And as long as you have a growth mindset, then you'll grow over time. We all have the temptation, not that there's not a place for this, but we all have the temptation to get home, you know, get on the couch and